So I bought a bunch of Oculuses to arbitrage, and then instead of making money off of them and selling them for profit, I just sent them out to friends at no profit.
I mean,
What?
it's probably better.
I felt it's better. I'd rather, dude. It's better. It's like at the end of the day, make $100 or being able to like hook up your friends. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
But it
Uh,
is funny. Oh, excuse me.
I I have a friend of mine. We're trying to source like hundreds of thousands of COVID tests, and if we
Okay.
can get them, we'll sell them at cost plus our labor cost just to keep people employed. You know, like customer service people and all the stuff that we'd have to lay off otherwise.
Okay.
Um, because I think I mean, they're needed, and if we can source them and we think we can, they'll sell very quickly. So we'll keep people employed in the warehouse and everything else.
The it's been interesting, man. Yeah, you see all these businesses. People rush into opportunity, right? Like on one hand, they do it out of, uh, out of concern, but also because there's profit.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's interesting though. You saw the sanitizer guy, where if there's too much profit, then you get spanked. You know what I'm talking about? The guy that like bought a bunch of hand
Yeah,
sanitizer and then everyone kind of shitted on him. It's a weird, like we're in a very interesting society where we want people to be successful, but if you're too successful, we're kind of jealous and hate on it. And then if you're successful in different ways, we'll hate on it.
yeah. I mean, the problem I have is if you look at it like capitalism should solve this problem, right? Like if we need hundreds of thousands of respirators, right, and people are willing to pay for them, people will make them, right,
Hmm.
or tests or whatever. But because we're not supposed to profit on a bad thing, we have to pretend that like that's not how things work, right? But like in reality, those could be produced, right?
Well, it's kind of like what's his name, the Ackman guy, Bill Ackerman, where he shorted the
Yeah.
market and went from 27 million to 2 billion. And there's interesting where people are like, you shouldn't be able to short the market and you shouldn't have these opportunities. And that's just an interesting discussion. Like, is he really helping the economy? No, but that provides the liquidity of people who think otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time. So maybe before we jump into the loan stuff, because basically I think there's so much different loan stuff out there that's very confusing for myself. And I just paid a firm $2,500 to help us process it, and then I've put in our accountants and all these things, and I feel like every day I'm getting confused. But before we jump into that, I think it'd be helpful to maybe share your company specifically and how they've been impacted, because I think people kind of are curious how these stories. It's like seeing the car wrecks. Sorry, it's not funny when you're the one that's the wrecked car. Sorry, David.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's three action items for everyone to do right now, which is one, fill out the disaster loan application because no matter what you get, well, assuming it's not fraudulent, you're supposed to get the $10,000 with very little strings attached, and it's not a loan; it's a grant that's forgiven, assuming that you spend it on quote payroll and other operating
All
expenses.
right, so hold on,
Right?
just say that one more time. That's the disaster loan.
That's the disaster loan. It's like technically EDIL, some I forget the abbreviation,
All right, so let me just look it
right?
up to give this out to everyone. We'll put this all in the show notes, but it's EDIL, something like that.
Hold on. The
EIDL.
new, yeah,
So the disaster loan SBA EIDL is a 10,000. So they have an immediate $10,000 grant that they're giving out to almost everyone.
that's new. This has never happened before. This is a brand new thing. In the past, this was always like, a hurricane happens, we'll figure it out, and it's like one state at a time or one county or whatever. This is the first time there's been a nationwide program, and the $10,000 is new. They've never done that before, and I think the intent was just to get money quickly. Obviously, they've been overloaded, so that's not happening. But the way it's written, it's a $10,000 advance that is not repayable even if you don't get the loan. And if you do get the loan and don't take it, it's still not, you still don't have to repay it if you use it for payroll and operating expenses.
All
So in
right.
essence, like if you're not doing fraud, you get $10,000.
All right. So that is the SBA disaster loans EIDL. You can get it at the SBA.gov. It'll be in the show notes and on the description on YouTube. So that's the immediate one to do. What's the second one to do?
So the second one is definitely the 7A PPP, which is Payroll Protection Program. And the problem with this is because it's 7A, people get this confused with the old 7A program, right? So there's always been two programs. One is 7A, which is a typical loan from the SBA with a higher interest rate. The disaster loan was always a lower interest rate and longer terms. Now, the new program, PPP, which is available tomorrow, Friday the 3rd, is what everyone's saying, is part of the new Coronavirus Relief Act, right? And this allows for you to get the loan, which is up to 2.5 times your monthly average of payroll, benefits, rent, utilities, mortgage interest, and a few other categories. And if you use 75% or more of that money to pay for payroll and benefits over the next 2.5 to 3 months, that amount is forgiven. The delta, like the additional 25%, can be used for other things like rent and operate. They just don't want you paying only rent. They want at least 75% to go to payroll, right? And in that case, and it's just forgiven. No interest, no payments, nothing. It's just it was a way for the government to what they felt would be an effective method to move money. It's way too slow already, but it's a method that was in place, right? Like the SBA existed, banks existed with SBA lending providers and like all this stuff, right? So it was infrastructure that they utilized to give out money.
All right, so let's just step it back because I think a lot of people are like SBA, SA, sounds like some gangsters are out there. I don't know where I come up with this shit, man. But so number one, there's the EIDL disaster loan $10,000 grant, and so that's the first thing that everyone should just go do immediately. Do you have any idea about how people would not qualify? So,
if you have more than 500 employees, like if you don't meet the typical SBA requirements, and some of them have been waived, right? So one of the main typical requirements of the SBA is that you cannot get funding somewhere else, right? Like another bank will not fund you. They've waived that for both the disaster program as well as the 7A payroll program, because they know that they want to do this very quickly. So they don't want you to jump through the hoops of a bank denying you and wasting time and what you would typically have to do.
All right. So first off, the first site is disasterloan.sba.gov. And so they do have, and this is part of the EIDL, where they have a $10,000 grant that everyone should just go do immediately. The second one is the PPP 7A, which one thing I want to highlight is the small SBA loans have always been in place, but now they've opened this up to a lot broader category. And so for a disaster loan, how have you guys been applying? What are you guys asking for, and what are you expecting?
So the disaster loan program, the way it works is first you go online. They changed this application process 3 times in 4 days. So they originally were using the old application, which they've always used, and had all sorts of things like you had to upload signed things for IRS transcripts and do all sorts of work. They took that down because there was a news article written that someone's personal information had been given out or something happened. They then replaced it with a PDF that you had to upload to Box. Crazy. And then a day and a half later, they replaced it with the current application with the $10,000 program. The current one is super simple. It's 3 or 4 pages. It should take you, 5 to 10 minutes to do, right? You don't have to request an amount. You just put in your information, who the entity is owned by, address, the last 12 months of sales, last 12 months of cost of goods, and number of employees. I think that's all of the main questions. And then your bank routing information for the $10,000, assuming you're approved. That's it.
All right. So, and then what did you guys ask? How much did you guys ask for the 7A PPP?
So that application goes in tomorrow or tonight, Friday a.m., whatever time banks will accept it. And that's a calculation. That is, there's a simple calculation. I'll send you a link for a website where you can enter the stuff and it will do the calculation for you. That's 2.5 times the average of the 12 months prior for payroll, benefits, rent, utilities, blah, blah, blah.
So just to make that stupid simple for anyone who's watching out there, that basically is your 2.5 months of your business expenses for the majority of them. Not your advertising dollars, but like any costs with people. And I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's penalties or you don't get as much if you've let go of the people. The idea there is that they want you to keep operating. The government's investing in you for 2.5 months.
Yeah, so there is some leadway that if you let people go already and then you bring them back, you have a leadway of you have to bring them back by, I think, June. I forget the exact date. But in essence, if you let people go, you can bring them back and you still qualify. They'll still forgive it, assuming you spend the money on that.
Okay.
Right. Now, both of these programs, so the 7A one, you have to put in a calculated amount. They'll verify it and they'll ask you. The disaster one, you don't even tell them an amount until later on. Right. So today you go to the application, you put it in, you ask for the $10,000, you do nothing else. Once it moves to the next step, which typically takes, I think the SBA was saying 6 to 21 days. I mean, I think they've received more applications in the last week than they've received ever total, right? So clearly it's going to take longer, but you don't have to do very much work for that one.
All right. So just to simplify, do the 10,000 disaster EIDL, do the PPP program as well. The 7A PPP, you can get it on the SBA site. And what is the third one?
So the third one is actually nothing to do with the SBA. And I've told all my companies to do this, which is if you have available credit in any fashion within your company, credit line, bank loans, whatever it is, at this point, I would be drawing that down 100%. So I take every bit of cash and then holding it somewhere. Preferably if I took it from bank A, I hold it at bank B, right? That way, like when we saw the crash last time in like 2008, what happened was banks quickly cut lending capacity and wanted to pull back, and including Amex and other people, they just pulled back total credit facility, right? So my view of this right now is worst case scenario, you pay a few months of interest and nothing happens, you're all good, you pay it back, and it costs you a few months of interest. If something bad happens, you now have cash that no one else has. So you as a company can go out and do really interesting things, hire great talent, expand, grow, market, while other people can't.
And so, I mean, what rates are you seeing on those lines of credit?
I mean, honestly, I don't care, right? Like, so call it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%, whatever facilities you have. If you factor that out over a 3-month period to buy yourself time, it's a really cheap investment to buy that time, right? Like you're buying 3 months of information for the interest, right?
Okay. So I want to just give out a few things that I think are interesting. So one, get a line of credit, either personal makes it a little bit more scary, or on your company if possible. Do the 7A PPP. Just to give you a range, at Sumo Group, it looks like our expenses, I didn't even realize it were this high, but it's somewhere in the range of about $600,000. So that is pretty substantial. And, I think one thing that a friend said to me is whether your company's doing well or not well, there is likely a pullback across the board, and everyone should be prepared for, I always not joke, but winter is coming. And so the people who've been planning and preparing, and that's why I want to put this video out there so that everyone goes and is clear to take action. The other thing is the disaster loan, where you get $10,000 grant immediately. And then, David, I think you said up to $500,000 is without a personal guarantee.
That's my understanding right now. It's simple, meaning less paperwork and stuff. If you request for the disaster over $500,000, it becomes more complex, is my understanding today.
So you can do both things. The one thing I want to highlight is this stuff is changing fast. So by the time you see it, it'll probably change. The thing I want every entrepreneur that has a business out there, at least within America, and they probably have it in your respective governments, is pay attention to this. Like, one, protect your company, protect your base, and this will give you cash to come up with things and be creative and thrive and sustain during this wild time. The other thing, David, I want to just touch on is you're involved in a variety of businesses, from software to a Mexican restaurant to retail. I don't know. Do you have retail? No, but you have commercial. Sorry, I'm not trying to spill all your stuff. To superfat.com food products. How are your businesses preparing to survive and thrive during this period? How are you guys becoming recession proof?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because we have access to a lot of different industries in this case, right? So some of them we've seen pull back like literally 100%. Like every customer has said. So this is a secret shopping company, HS Brands, right? So this company has seen a lot of pullback by all of its customers. And I think it's temporary, right? But so like in that case, that's a very different scenario than say super fat, where we're seeing people stocking up on food, right? So I break it into two main categories, right? One is do everything you can to protect the business and cash, right? So that means utilize the government programs, utilize lines of credit, reduce expenses where possible, like without cutting into the business. But like now's the time to take a deep look, right? Like we're all stuck at home. Spend an extra hour and do that. So pull out as many expenses as possible that aren't needed.
So what did you do expense wise
But
for that business, for instance? Like how are they surviving?
Well, so I mean, obviously you have to cut payroll. You have to look at every expense in the business from technology and platforms and everything else. What can you put on hold? Who can you ask for extensions for on rent? Like all of those different things, right? Like I would look at every available option
Okay.
from a protection standpoint, right? But the inverse of that too is like now is the tremendous opportunity, right? Like I'm telling my companies as well, like now is when you can go hire the best talent, right? Everyone else is scared. If you're willing to make an investment of a few months, you could get someone you never would be able to get before, right? Like we're seeing lots of the best people laid off because companies are slowing down or cutting expenses in the wrong ways. And the same is true for marketing, right? Like we've seen Facebook ads and other mediums, the CPAs drop because less people are advertising, especially large companies that spend a lot on branding. So like, can you find opportunities like that today to take advantage of while everyone else is scared? It's a great time.
And so how are your SaaS companies doing? Because I know you're involved or you see a lot of those. And how's that comparing to like you're in super fat. I was kind of thinking, man, like super fat and any package, not processed, but processed of sorts, consumer goods, I would assume be thriving as people are trying to hoard that stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a bump there. I mean, we're dealing with how do we protect supply and production and inbound raw ingredients and things like that, which is the other side of it. Like it's very difficult. But yeah, we launched the cookies just few days ago. And I mean, that's doing very well. So I think that's a different type of a product, but we still seen slowdown there, right? Like big retailers where this product was going to go into have delayed by a month or two, right? Because they're focusing on critical items in the store, or stores are closed or limited capacity or whatever is happening on a retail side. So I think it depends on the industry.
If you're a hustler, David, like you're the poorest, you're the richest, poorest hustler I know. If all of your stuff went away today and you were like now looking for opportunities, where would you start looking?
I mean, I think the most interesting opportunities today are going to be healthcare, insurance, finance, industries that don't go away no matter what happens, right? So I think healthcare is tremendously interesting. Like those are areas that there's a lot going to be happening. So how can you service those people today with stuff that you might have already done, right? So if you're a SaaS provider, right, like one of the companies I know, well, their core customer was, hotels, resorts, casinos, right? All gone. Now it was a texting solution. So they've pivoted and said, how can we put this into healthcare for texting for wait times, texting for, wait in your car and then come in and see us? Like, what are the other things that they could implement immediately with the tools they've already built?
I love that. That's interesting because I think myself is thinking, what are new businesses? What are delivery businesses? What are health? What is entertainment? I'm the more the consumer perspective. I like that you're thinking who's actually thriving. Like you can't cancel your early insurance. You're probably not canceling your cell phone. There's probably healthcare. There's probably delivery companies. How do you service those guys who are making a lot of money now that have extra to throw off?
Yep. Right. Like, so, I mean, like another great example, like if I'm a recruiting company, right, like a lot of my business might have gone away, but all of a sudden there's some people that have not had to recruit this many people this quickly ever, right? Supermarkets, Amazon, delivery, like all these other things, right? Like, so could I pivot and help those companies today that are thriving?
I love it. Anything else you're seeing out there at war?
Yeah. I mean, I think that what is most interesting is like the things the government have put in place are good. They will help. They are going to be very slow. And while there's a few people that complain about it, most of the people I know are just continuing on, right? Like ignoring it, like, yeah, I got to get the application in because I should do it and it's the right thing to do and it will help me. But they're not like collapsing and saying, I give up, right? And I think those are the people that end up thriving.
Who else have you seen shift? Like some of the companies I saw someone launch Estimote. I don't know if you saw Paul Graham tweet about that, but it's a
No.
device that tells you if you're getting too close in social distancing. You know, that's yeah, you know, I think that's interesting,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's one way someone's shifted whatever they were doing before into like, hey, we have this technology, we have this product. I'm trying to think of other things that I've seen people trying to transition to serve a different type of customer, different type of temporary or long-term market.
I mean, I think the best example, honestly, is restaurants, right? Like, if you look at like Chipotle, for example, we have a friend that I think loves Chipotle, and when you think about that, right? Like, their business has always had delivery, but they pivoted very quickly to emphasize delivery, prioritize delivery, and put in place measures and protections that would be different than what they typically would, right? So that's an extreme example, right? Because they're serving the same product in a new medium or method, and they're doing it in a different way than before, right? And they're trying to adapt very quickly in a business that is typically mostly driven by walk-in business.
I love that stuff, man. I think one of the things that's blowing my mind and I've been so excited to see everywhere is just the innovation and the creativity that all these people are doing. I heard one today that was a new favorite, which is a guy is helping high schools set up virtual graduations. I
That's
love it.
awesome,
I
right?
love it. That's amazing. I think there's going to be new online promoters. So, there's going to be the ticket master of the new virtual worlds. I heard another one today from Gumroad, which was someone selling Zoom backgrounds. So I think there's just and my other buddy was telling me that Zoom themselves, everyone's kind of using it and adapting it as a normal thing now, is hiring 1,000 salespeople this month. So
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at their numbers, I think there was a blog post this morning or yesterday. I mean, they screwed up on some security stuff and some messaging or whatever. And who cares? Like, I mean, whatever. But like the numbers were very clear. I think they went from like a million to like 20 million users in a matter of days, right? And like stuff happens, right? And it's not sustained growth, but I think it does represent a very interesting change. Like, my middle daughter, who is 6, right? She's now used Zoom. That would not have been typical. Like, she understands FaceTime because she talks to her grandmother and stuff like that and whatever, right? But like, this is a different experience to talk to multiple people on the computer and through Zoom. So I think long term that's going to be great. And the other problem is too, a lot of school districts have not adapted very well. So we've seen this for our daughters, which is one goes to a small Montessori school, the other one is in high school in the public system, and it is a tremendously bad system in CCSD, which is Las Vegas Henderson, and they've just made every choice wrong, right? And yesterday they decided to ban using Zoom. I'm like, really? Like, this is what you guys are doing? Like, this is what you're focusing on doing rather than providing instruction and doing things and adapting and showing our students, like, here's how to adapt in the world. They're like, no, Zoom isn't safe. Like, that's what they're worried about. And quite honestly, like, if that was a company, they'd fail, right? It's just a government organization, so it's supported. But that type of attitude, I think, are the people that will not succeed in our new reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, and we'll wrap it up with this. So one, everyone just go, it's not even just do the loan. I think I wanted to put out that here's the things that we're observing. It might change a lot, but I think, David, you brought out an amazing point out that I'm going to highlight, which is submit the applications, just do it and focus on your business. Don't count on this necessarily. Figure out how you can actually adapt and thrive. And the thing that I've been thinking about is like, you can create something that's amazing now. Like, dude, when this all ends, those people are going to come out way stronger, way bigger, way badder. And then I think there's other people who are going to sit around blaming other people for it. And that's probably where we're going to end up.
I mean, look, I think of it as some people think of things happening to them and complain about it. And other people think, this is a gift that I got to experience this, right? And the latter are the ones that win.
Why don't we just keep doing like good quotes to people to finish this off? No, no, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. We'll end with that. All right, buddy, go hit the Peloton. I'm going to go do some boxing VR. Boxy VR is amazing, dude. I've been doing Oculus like twice a week for workouts.
Yeah, I bought a Peloton last minute. Maybe I'm gonna have to move on to the VR next.
Oh man, the VR is just sweaty as hell, and it's pretty interesting. It's interesting because I pay $55 a week. This is how the world's changing, man. Pay $55 a week for a boxing trainer, and he's awesome, and I love him. And for $30 one time, I have a virtual thing that kind of does similar equivalent from my home without having to go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
All right, boss. You have a great day. Enjoy the Peloton. Thanks for sharing all this
All right,
information.
later.